What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to the Louisiana Tech NC State football preparation show, y'all. We're going to have a little bit of fun today. As again, we decided to change it up a little bit. A lot of Tuffy Talk guys, including myself, been super busy this week. And, obviously spent a lot of time and putting thoughts into the tennis, the live show, talking about the Tennessee game. So just said, you know what? Why don't we do something different this week? And we're going to do a live show here today where we're going to start off this first 30 minutes here. Given about basically 5 different thoughts on things that need to change, starting with the Louisiana Tech game. So again, for all those tuning in here, make sure again put any comments, questions, concerns that you have in the chat, and we will get to them here today. So with that being said, let's start off with change number 1. And also, too, by the way, too, I'm going to be backing these claims up with a little bit of PFF grading as well. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of that, show you guys some premium stats, and we'll break it all down. So starting out first and foremost, y'all here, I'll just do it this way. Experienced offensive line needs to play like an experienced offensive line. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we jump on over here to the PFF scoring, wanted to show you guys a couple of things. First and foremost, y'all, as you can see, this is 2024, so this is through the first 2 games. As you can see, Anthony Bell and Jacarius Peak showing off with great PFF grades. 79.4 grade for Anthony Belton, 74.4 grade for Jacarius Peak. But as you can see, all these next guys that you see are running backs, tight ends, even a backup tackle. But our 3 starting interior linemen, Anthony Carter, Zeke Correll, and Tim McKay, are down here towards the bottom of the pass blocking grades. You got Anthony Carter with a 63.6 grade, Zeke Correll with a 60.9 grade, and Tim McKay with a 59.6 grade. So just a terrible, just disgusting grades here for your 3 offensive linemen. And again, the biggest frustration too is 4 of these starting offensive linemen, Anthony Carter, Zeke Correll, Tim McKay, all 3 guys right there, plus Anthony Belton, are all graduate students. So I'm looking at this saying this should be honestly the strength of our offense, but they just it's been a mix of just not really being able to click, but also too, I mean, and we'll talk a little bit about it here in a second, but obviously that Tennessee defensive line they went against this past weekend is the best defensive line they will face all season, and is honestly probably one of the most talented and best defensive line groups in the country as well. And to even back that up a little bit here, I'll show you guys first and foremost this article here from USA Today saying inside Tennessee's football's deepest defensive line in the SEC and how James Pierce, their star outside linebacker defensive end, fits for the plan for Georgia. And even right here, as you can see, as a part of the free piece, Tennessee football made 15 separate substitutions on its offensive line in the opening drive against NC State. So 15 different defensive linemen played against us in the opening drive alone. And that rotation included 8 individual defensive linemen and 4 different defensive line combinations. I'm sorry. So I read that. So 8 different defensive linemen played in the first drive alone. There's 15 different substitutions leading to 4 different defensive line combinations. So again, a super deep defensive line, obviously highlighted specifically by James Pierce, who right now is going number 9 overall to the Arizona Cardinals. So again, a very good Tennessee defensive line. And to take it even a step further, y'all, I mean, look at these grades here specifically from the Tennessee game alone. You got Zeke Correll, Anthony Carr, Tim McKay, all with 45.1 or lower grades in pass blocking, which is just, that's just not what you want, especially again with a guy in Zeke Correll who came as a starting center for Notre Dame, who started all 13 games for Notre Dame last year as well. But North Wolf, what's going on? Men's soccer is a bright spot so far this year. Went to the Cal match and plan on going to a few more. Yeah, again, men's soccer and Mark Hubbard has definitely been a feather in boot Corrigan's hat for sure. He's just been a great pickup. And honestly, I said it from the get-go. I said that this guy is going to lead us to greatness within the first year. Watch this. So again, yeah, definitely make sure to go and support men's soccer and all of our sports, volleyball, women's soccer, you name it. Make sure you go get involved, y'all. Great times for sure. But jumping back into it. So again, it comes back to, and just a reminder once again, my point being that experienced offensive line needs to play like an experienced offensive line. And so far, we just have not seen that. Now, the hope is that, definitely Tennessee game could be a bit of a wake up call, and definitely a wake up call for Zeke and Tim McKay specifically, who I think are the two of the best three here. But again, Anthony Carr, with the amount of experience that he has and with the amount of promise he has shown, definitely needs to show up better for sure. Starting off with Louisiana Tech here this weekend, who definitely defensive line is not one of their strengths, so definitely got to dominate the line of scrimmage here this weekend. So now let's move on to point number 2 here. Let me bring me back up here. Now let's move on to point number 2 here, which is find a balance in the running back room. So what do I necessarily mean by that? So first thing which I want to point out is I was actually one of the people who said that Jordan Waters seems to be struggling. But looking at here, I'll bring the PFF grades back up. Run blocking here, and don't worry, I'll make it bigger so you guys can see it a little bit easier. But run blocking wise, we don't have a single starting offensive lineman who has above a 61 PFF grade, which is, like 61 is in your okay range basically per PFF, and we don't have a single offensive lineman in the good or great areas for run blocking. So again, just the holes are just not opening up. And even too, if I bring up these rushing stats as well, one of the things that really stands out is that we have 216 yards which come after contact. We have 259 yards of total offense, period. So meaning that literally we only have, if I could do my math here, 43 yards total within the first 2 games that are coming before one of our running backs or whoever's running the ball gets touched, which is not what you want to see. You would, or not what you want. I mean, ideally, you would love 2, 3, 4, or even 5 yards to be gained before they're even touched, which comes from just opening up some huge holes that running backs can get through. So what I'm necessarily saying by that is, again, offensive line just is not pulling their part right now in terms of giving our running backs opportunities to make plays. Now, the other thing, though, which I want to point out here, which if I can go over here for Jordan Waters here real quick, is Jordan Waters right now, he has a 119 yards rushing, which I want to point out, as you see right here, he ran the ball 7 times for -4 yards rushing, y'all. 7 times for -4 yards. Literally, basically, if he hadn't even played, that would have been more beneficial than if he played as much as he did. Now, I'm definitely not putting all that on Jordan Waters as just like we just saw. And if we go over to the Tennessee game here alone, again, those run blocking grades are just not what you want to see whatsoever. So, but with Jordan Waters, he's definitely a guy that what you get from him. He's a guy that is an up the middle guy that is routinely a guy that protects the ball. Even as you see here, I mean, in his entire career alone before he came to NC State, he had 3 total fumbles, and that was over his 5-year tenure at Duke. He had 3 fumbles. And he has 1 this year, which came in early in the Western Carolina game, which was a what the heck, to say the least. But again, I think that Jordan Waters, what you get from him. He's a bigger running back, keep him up the middle. And then with a guy like Hollywood Smothers, he's a guy that gives you a lot of electricity, a lot of juice, a lot of bump. And is a guy that I think needs to be used more, but in a balanced manner. I think with Jordan Waters, if I bring the rushing back up here, he's a guy that he honestly was probably the bright spot, Dalen Smothers, in the Tennessee game. If I bring up the rushing here for the Tennessee game, he had 6 run attempts for 25 yards, averaged 4.2 yards a carry against Tennessee, which is way better than Kendrick Raphael, who had 1.3 yards a carry. And again, Jordan Waters, who had negative 0.6 yards per carry. So all 25 of those yards, by the way, that Dalen Smothers had, so of his 25 yards rushing, all 25 of those were after contact. So pretty much every single time he was getting touched in the backfield or close to the line of scrimmage. So definitely not what you want there. And just again, goes to the weakness the offensive line unfortunately had in the Tennessee game. So definitely something that stands out there. But the other thing that stands out too, if I can bring up the pass blocking here, is if we go to the running backs. All right. So the running backs, Dalen Smothers has a 73.5 PFF grade for pass blocking, which is in the good range, very good range. And Jordan Waters has a 68.1 PFF grade for pass blocking, which is also good. Kendrick Raphael has a 20.6 PFF grade for pass blocking. He was out there for he had 8 different opportunities for pass blocks, and let's see, gave up 1 hurry and what is PR? I forget. QB pressure. That's right. So he gave up one QB hurry, 1 QB pressure during his 8 different pass blocking attempts over the last 2 games. So I think that honestly now you're starting to see a little bit more in terms of what each running back gives you, and so Anaya needs to use that properly and use Dalen Smothers on the outside, use his speed effectively, but also to get the ball to Dalen Smothers on a through passing, whether that's on like a Texas route, which is like a curl in front of the offensive line. Use him on some screen passes, whatever it may be. Just get the ball to him. He's just so explosive, so fast. And I think he just, again, let's just use him more effectively. And same thing with Waters is I think just continue to use him, build his confidence up, but just understand he's not a guy that really needs to be spending a lot of time outside. Use him in zone blocks, gap schemes, whatever it may be. But just in terms of outside run, that's just not where his strength is. And Kendrick Raphael, he's been solid, but the problem is, can this NC State offense really continue to use 3 different running backs in a balanced manner when I think that we honestly need to start to get to the point where if somebody's hot, we need to ride with him. And I think between Jordan Waters and Dalen Smothers, those have been the 2 guys so far that have really stepped out the most. And I mean, Dalen Smothers right now is averaging 7.1 yards a carry over his 9 carries so far. Kendrick Raphael has 4.1 yards per carry over his 7. So again, definitely, I think the biggest thing that honestly screams about this is that the running backs are not as much of an issue as maybe people think. Just wanted to point that out here first and foremost. So again, I think a huge step up here from the offensive line will really pay dividends, but also to playing a more not so elite defensive line as well, which again, I mean, not necessarily an excuse, but just pointing out the facts that Tennessee will be more likely by far the toughest defensive line that NC State goes against the rest of the season. So just wanted to point that out here as well. So again, y'all, I think we could just remind once again. So we need experienced offensive line to play like an experienced offensive line. We need to find a balance in the running game. And then point number 3 here is we brought in weapons to take pressure off of KC. We need to use them. Simple as that. We need to use them. And again, I understand, on the live show on Monday, Greg and Michael's point, which is at the end of the day, Casey's been our guy so far. And so, we need to use him. But then I'm saying, well, if he's just that good, if we were going to make him this much of a focal point, then why did we go after and spend all this money and all this time going after all these weapons like Noah Rogers, like, sticking to make sure we get Terrell Anderson in the door, getting Wesley Grimes, getting Justin Jolie? Why did we spend all the money and time going after these guys? If I bring up the stats right here, I mean, right now, of the 60 targets that have been thrown and of the 60 passes that have been thrown in the last 2 games, Kevin Concepcion has 21 of them. So he has over a 33% target share right now for this team, which, I mean, anybody who plays fantasy football, I mean, anything over 20% is really, really good. Anything over 30 is like, bro, that dude is the alpha, and it's not even close. And right now, Casey is the alpha. And again, I get it that he's probably not even arguably the best wide receiver in the ACC right now, one of the best wide receivers in the country right now. But again, it's just not, I feel, sustainable in the long term, especially when teams are going to start to try and figure it out. Now I know that last year, KC was our alpha last year, and teams' defenses still weren't able to stop him. But also, too, I think a little bit is, hey, take a little bit off him because the last thing we want is to be so reliant on him, and then he gets injured, and then now we're kind of starting from square one a little bit. And especially again, I just don't still feel like you have seen what you really have in some of these guys like Wesley Grimes, Noah Rogers. I think both of them showed a lot of promise. I mean, Wesley Grimes, his first catch was a beautiful catch. Noah Rogers, all the hype he has coming from Ohio State. Um, so again, only for Noah Rogers to have 5 targets, Wesley Grimes to have 4 targets. Uh, Dakari Collins, who showed a lot of promise last year, 7 targets. Keenan Jackson even 1 target when he was getting a lot of hype out of camp. So again, and again, by the way, too, I love Justin Jolie. I think that dude is an absolute stud. I think he's arguably one of the best tight end prospects in the country from what we've seen from him so far. I mean, look at these grades. I mean, and I think it's, an interesting thing for sure that the highest route running. Sorry, I was I was like route running. The highest route running grades that were given out by PFF also have the most targets. So the highest route running grade of a 75.6 belongs to Kevin Concepcion, who has 21 targets. The next highest route running grade is 72.3, belongs to Justin Jolie, who's gotten 12 targets. So, as you see, Noah Rogers has a 58.6 grade, which is not really hot, and he's gotten 5 targets out of it. So I get that for sure, but it's like, let's find ways to get him involved with with the creativity he brings in the offense. Let's continue to find ways to get these guys involved and just let Grayson McCall build some camaraderie, build some trust, build some confidence in these weapons that he has. So that's kind of really where I am with it. Just, again, find ways to get there with these guys. All right, moving on to so just to kind of recap here, I'll just recap once again. So experienced offensive line needs to play like an experienced offensive line. Find a balance in the running back room. We brought in weapons. Let's use them. Point number 4. Skipped one. Well, forgot to put this one in. My bad. But my next one, though, is that we need to find our defensive identity once again in our run defense. And I think defensively, I can't really say too much about the defense in the Tennessee game just because they were on the field so much. Now, did they play great? Absolutely not. Definitely areas of improvement for sure. But at the end of the day, I mean, in the first and at the beginning of the second half, literally, I think it was maybe the first play of the first 2 drives, Grayson McCall, or I think the second drive in the second half and the third drive in the second half, Grayson McCall fumbled the ball both times. And so again, just defense was out there so much, and they only gave up 13 points 13 points to the Tennessee offense in the first half. So I mean, overall, they put us in position to be in that game in the first half, and we just could not take advantage. So jumping on over to some run defense grades here. So first and foremost, looking at this year's team, so bringing up the run defense PFF grades, and as you can see, you got pretty much every single guy here who has one of these good, if not great grades, which again is anything above 70, has played at max 41 snaps total this season so far, which basically are guys that have been subbed in and out, but have not been focal starters right now. But the most concerning thing is that the 4 guys that are probably 6 guys that you've seen here so far at the bottom are guys that are routine starters. And actually, I even see here right now as well that I totally overdid how many run snaps there are. Sorry about that, but it's just concerning that the 6 lowest run defense grades here are by Caden Fordham, Aiden White, Sean Brown, DK Kaufman, Corey Coley, Javali Price. Guys that we expect to be leaders on this team. So, with that being said, we got a special guest here. My man, Ryan Williams. What up, Ryan?
What's up, man? Sorry, I'm live from the garage tonight. I had to find a place to be quiet. So,
Let's go. Oh man. Well, anyway, bud. Hey, listen. So, I'm going over right now point number 4 for me, which is finding an identity once again defensively and stopping the run.
yeah.
And the point I was bringing up here right now is in PFF, the 6 lowest run defense grades we have right now are from Trevally Price, Corey Coley, DK Kaufman, Sean Brown, Aiden White, and Caden Fordham. Which, if I could bring your attention to 2023, bring this up here right here. Sean Brown had a 75.2 grade last year in total. Uh, Aiden White had a 68.8 run grade. So again, it just don't know if it's necessarily a scheme or just maybe finding as much focus on stopping the run, but definitely there's been a huge, huge difference for sure. And I mean, it was always a routine thing. Like it was just like as much as it's easy for me to breathe, like it's pretty much was just a given that a Tony Gibson defense was going to stop the run, and then it's just can the opposing offense throw enough to beat us? That's really what it was. So again,
Yeah, I think the problem. I mean, I don't think it's a problem, but I think the difference with the defense this year is you don't have dudes that can just blow plays up.
yeah,
So like last year, you had, and you saw it with the ratings. You had Boykin, you had Peyton Wilson. They can just go and diagnose a play and blow it up. So then it allowed your secondary dudes to make plays.
mhm,
I feel like this year you really don't have that dude that just has that natural instinct. I mean, obviously Boykin, he's hurt, so Luke not having him makes a huge difference. So you really don't have a guy that is there just disrupting everything. I
mhm,
thought honestly, I mean, I see Van is at 7. I
yep,
I feel like he hasn't had the impact that I thought he would have. I
mhm,
know he was the main dude that caused the pick six against Aiden White, but I feel like other than that, it's been kind of a quiet year for him.
yeah,
In the same on the other side, with Travali, I think you said he was down at the bottom too. I think
yeah,
I know he's dealing with some stuff, and so I'll attribute that to his ranking. But I mean, you don't have dudes like Savion on the edge that could
sure,
just blow up the line of scrimmage and just hold the line and allow secondary dudes to come in and make plays.
yeah,
Because in 3-3-5, you need your nickels, you need your DBs to be good, and
mhm,
especially your linebackers to be good. You need your D line to just hold the line of scrimmage, and then the other dudes can make plays. But I feel like this year you really haven't had that as much.
yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, I mean, just it's just, and I was just saying too about this that, I can't necessarily say too much about the defense just because in the Tennessee game, again, I mean, the biggest stat that I know you and I have talked about is about how we only give up 13 offensive points in the first half. Our defense did to Tennessee's offense, which I mean, even James Henderson said like if all you knew about the game was that we gave up 13 points on defense in the first half to Tennessee, we'd be jumping for joy, saying, "Oh, like we got to be up, we got to be feeling great right now," and obviously that wasn't the case. So
Dude,
just
I honestly, like, maybe I'm in the minority, but I feel like the defense has been solid this year.
yeah.
They've had a plays before. I feel like this year they've given up some big plays here and there, but it hasn't been anything too crazy. Because you figure Western Carolina, we gave up an interception basically to the 10-yard line.
Mhm,
So that was free points right there.
mhm,
And against Tennessee, you had 3 turnovers basically almost in state's red zone. I think they were on like the 25, 30-yard line
mhm,
that equated to 21 points. I feel like it's more so the defense has been getting put in very tough spots. Um,
true.
and I mean, hell, even against Tennessee, they outscored the offense. I think is more of an offensive problem than a defensive problem. But I definitely think you're missing dudes like Devon Boykin who could, lead the defense. Western Carolina, you lost Fordham, and you saw the difference in the first half when Fordham was in there. I mean, the defense he made plays.
Mhm,
Um, so I don't know, man. I feel like the defense has held their own. It's just they've been put in some tough spots.
yeah. Yeah, nope, and obviously too, I think coverage-wise as well, there's been a little bit of fluctuation trying to find who our starting 5 guys need to be as well. Obviously Corey Coley, I believe it was who was it that they kept out of Western Carolina? Was it Corey Coley they kept out of the Western Carolina
No,
game?
it was Jahad Carter.
Jahad Carter. See, I did.
Yeah, so he was your starting nickel.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a little bit of change there is trying to figure out who's the right guys is definitely contributing some of that. But also too, I mean, Aiden White has been solid this year, but definitely hasn't been as locked down as he was. I mean, just to kind of give you a little bit of numbers to back that up, in 2022 he had a coverage PFF grade of 81.6. Last year he had 71.9. This year he's 64.1 right now in terms of coverage PFF grade. So but he's given up 1 touchdown, which I think that came from the Western Carolina game, which was a suspect touchdown he gave up at best. But he's given up he has a 46.7 reception percentage right now, which is actually his career low right now. Last year he had a 53.3% reception percentage. So he's right there in line with what he's doing, but I just think obviously from the run defense side, just not where he's typically has been. But again, we're totally nitpicking right now on the defensive side. When at the end of the day, and I think this is really the biggest thing, Ryan, is that we knew going into the season that okay, our defense isn't going to be as elite as it has been in previous years, but we're going to make up with that significantly by what we're doing on the offensive side.
Yeah.
And obviously we have the furthest thing from come anywhere near that. I mean, again, not even scoring 1 offensive touchdown against Tennessee, which is incredibly frustrating. I mean, you're like, that's just like that honestly to me is just screaming worst case scenario right there. You can't even score 1 touchdown against Tennessee.
Yeah, I think the offense is very frustrating because we talked about it before the year. My biggest worry was I was like, the offense is going to score their points. They're going to average 30 a game. But is the defense going to give up big plays? And I feel like the defense is really limited to big plays. I'm not sure of the number from the Tennessee game because, obviously it got out of hand in the second half. I think they may have gave up 1 big play in the first half. But, I mean, your offense, it's just been awful. And I don't know if it's scheme. And, part of me thinks it's scheme because we were talking about it too. Why are you running 2 tight end sets? I mean, and it's so obvious what you're going to do. Why are you running 2 tight end sets? You're not going to pass out of that. And so you're condensing the field, and then you're trying to run between the tackles, and then you get blown up.
Yeah.
Obviously the O-line has done no favors. I feel like the calls or the plays have been there, but your O-line has just been getting blown up left and right. I think it was McKay just had an awful game. Basically everything he did, he was just getting blown up. So I really think it just needs to switch to just spread it out. The first drive, you kind of just spread it out, worked it between the hashes, worked it between the zones, did a little bit of misdirection. Second half of the game, you did no misdirection with Casey. I don't even know if he was targeted in the second half. I just feel like the scheme has just been very lackluster. It's the way offenses run now, it is just so much misdirection, so much motion. And when State does that, they move the ball and then you just stop it. And then it's like running a half court offense in basketball. The elite teams can do it, but if you're not elite, then you struggle.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we've really seen with State. I don't understand why you're not running the no huddle. Yeah. You have the speed to run it. So I don't understand why you're not running it when 90% of college football runs some type of no huddle mesh system RPO, and just State is just like an old school Princeton offense in basketball where we're just going to go old school and just dink and dunk it down the field and run between tackles. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, and I mean, my first point even was that experienced offensive line needs to play like an experienced offensive line. I mean, again, you have 4 graduate students here on the offensive line, and if I could show you the grades here from the Tennessee game, I mean, from a pass blocking side,
number 1.
It was Tim McKay, Anthony Carter, Zeke Corral, Jacarius Peak. Look at those grades, man. 55.6, 45.1, 37, 36.
3 of your top 5 are tight ends.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. So, and again, I mean, like Reed Mitchell, I mean, and keep in mind that one of them had 2 blocks. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you can't even use that.
Well,
So,
that's true. Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, Anthony Belton's been, at least per PFF, I mean, they've been loving Anthony Belton on PFF. But again, I mean, yeah, Jacarius Peak, Zeke, Carter, McKay, all 55.6 or lower in terms of PFF run blocking grades. I mean, that's all you need to say right there. Now, I did make the point, and I want your thoughts here, that obviously Tennessee should be by far the toughest defensive line that we face all year, and it's not even a question. I mean, like I has shown a USA Today article where it said that 8 different offensive linemen from Tennessee played in the first drive, NC State first drive alone. There
Yeah.
was 15 different substitutions, 4 different defensive line combinations in the opening drive alone. And then you still have a guy who's right now projected as a top 10 draft pick in the 2025 NFL draft. So, I mean, so do you kind of look at this as, hey, listen, this is going to be a time where all this leadership, all this experience gets, a kick in the teeth,
Yeah.
and say, hey, listen, if we play, not to say like, if we just play 60% better, like not even like, it doesn't even need to be night and day, but 60% better, we'll dominate most of the offense, most of the defensive lines we play this year.
The problem I have is that you've already played an FCS team,
And it
and
wasn't good.
they couldn't even convert 4th and 1s against the FCS team.
Agreed.
That's the problem I have.
Do you put that to scheme or do you put that to effort?
I think it's both, man.
Okay.
I mean, like, it's, to me, it's effort if you can't block the dude right in front of you. On a 4th and 1, you just line up. There's no pulls. There's no stunts. It is just straight line up and just block and get a single yard.
Yep.
And you can't do that. Now, I think there were plays where, Waters getting tripped up by his feet a few times. And, that obviously would have helped the stats. But to me, and I know Dorn's mindset, like it's 4th and 1. We have 4, experienced dudes on the line, 4 or 5 experienced dudes. We should be able to get a damn 4th and 1.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it against Western Carolina. It was even uglier against Tennessee.
Disgusting.
So, I mean, something has to change. And then there were times where I think it was in Tennessee game, you had Raphael back there to block and completely missed on a corner blitz, and it would have been a massive play. But I mean, it's just blocking all around, man.
Yep. Nope. Agreed. Now I do want to get to my next point around, which is finding a balance in the running back room. And
Yeah.
basically my point here, first and foremost, looking at the PFF stats, is that I don't really know how much really that the running backs are really necessarily the problem. I think a lot of it really comes to the offensive line. And so if I bring these stats up with the rushing, so the point which I was making is that we have 259 total yards of rushing so far. 216 yards of that came after contact.
Mhm.
So basically saying that pretty much every single rush has been basically at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, before they're even touched. So, so that's not good. But even as well, one stat which I saw, what was it? Jordan Waters had -4 yards rushing on 7 carries against Tennessee. -4 yards rushing. So basically meaning that even if he literally had not played, he would have been more effective than if he had rushed at all. Like,
Yeah. Well, and to your point, man, like those rushes by Waters, those weren't his fault. Hell, he
No.
was getting hit by the time he got the ball.
Right.
I mean, like I said, to your point, like the O line has to be better. I'm sure basically all of our non-contact yards came on those 3 rushes by Smothers on the end of the second half drive. Because I mean, the holes were wide open. I mean, any running back's going to hit those holes wide open.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, and again, to your point, that I don't think it's the running backs. Like,
No.
You saw Waters. He broke the long run against Western Carolina. Sure, he could break some more tackles at his feet, but for the most part, I would say there's no consistent run game. There's no consistent hole. There's no consistent blocking.
Yeah.
So they're having to work hard just to get their yards.
Right. Yeah. No, now, I mean, I think that the one other point though that I was making is I think now you know what you have in Smothers, you know what you have in Waters. We need to
Yeah,
use them more effectively and appropriately. Knowing that Smothers is going to be your juice, your speed, your, your most explosive guy. So, use that speed, get him the ball even too, from a passing perspective, whether that's on screens, getting him do some Texas routes, whatever it may be, just get him in space and, see what he can do with it. But then with Waters, know that, just we need to get some blocks. We need to get him some holes, but keep him going up the middle. You know what I mean? And just go make him get 4 or 5 yards for us or more. Get some explosive plays. I mean, looking at breakaway runs here. I mean, we have literally 4 runs of 15 or more yards. So we have 4 explosive runs so far this season, which is just that's not going to do it. We need more of a balance,
yeah,
and there's too much talent in the backfield to have 4 runs of 15 yards or more. That's not enough.
yeah, yeah. Because I think once Tennessee figured out they didn't have to stack the line of scrimmage to stop the run,
Mhm.
and they kind of set back in a shell.
Yep.
It took away our offense because you
Mhm.
couldn't run the ball. They were basically getting pressure with their D line. They
Yep.
didn't have to do anything else. They just basically were like, all right, we're just going to sit back in a shell defense, run cover threes, cover fours, and hell, they could even do zero blitzes and it'd be fine.
Yep.
Um, and I mean that's a problem when you become one dimensional. Uh,
Mhm.
you get shut down, and that's exactly what happened to State's offense once Tennessee adjusted.
Well, and honestly too, and like, we're gonna talk about Grayson McCall, obviously, shocker here in a minute. But I think that, that's why, like, I can't necessarily scream too much at him because again, we need a run game that can help support him and take some pressure off of him, that we're not so reliant on throwing the ball, that we can still run the ball effectively as well.
Yeah,
To get, just like you said, to get the defense to respect the run a little bit more, stack the box a little bit more, so that way it opens up opportunities for Grayson to have easier throws to throw these weapons that he has. So, that's why I'm saying is that, if you have some breakaway runs, that's going to force the defense to think twice, about, when we have a play action, waiting a second longer to see if it's actually a run before they, go back into their zone.
yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah. So again, so with running, just need a huge step up from the offensive line wise. But again, the talent's there, right? I mean, like, the talent's 100% there.
Well, yeah,
You,
you've seen
yeah,
it, but
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your O line stinks. I mean, it's a very lame, I guess, symbol of it. But it's like you can have the nicest car, but if your tires are crap, you ain't going to do nothing. You ain't going to go anywhere.
good
And
point.
I mean, it's true though. I mean, the whole offense hinges on the O line. They were not very good last year. It gave Armstrong no chance. And then Anai switched it in the latter part of the season. Did
Yep.
a lot of misdirection, a lot of fast stuff, and it helped. I mean, you have to do something to help your O line if eventually you realize they're not going to be very good. Now, it very well could be a thing where Anai didn't think his O line would be this bad. And I hate to
Yeah.
keep ragging on the group, but I mean, I think they even know it hasn't been very good at all either.
No. I mean, you don't
Um,
think they got to know. I mean, it's slapping them in the face, like,
yeah,
they can't get away from it. So, and again, because I mean, I think they knew the challenge. They knew the challenge they were going to face against Tennessee. They knew it was a stout defensive line. And again, I mean, just like that, a USA Today article said. I mean, it's the best defensive line group in the SEC, which is
yeah,
predominantly known for having really strong defensive line prospects and really strong defensive line rooms. So again, that's why I'm sitting here saying, hey, listen, like it's kind of like I kind of look at it a little bit as, hopefully like playing with like, heavy boxing gloves where like you you have a couple of exercises, a couple days, wearing those heavy gloves, using them, punching them a ton, and then that way once you take them off and put on, normal boxing gloves, it's a lot lighter, and then now you're hitting a lot harder because you're like, we face the toughest,
yeah,
competition that we are going to face by far this season. And so, listen, if we just play a good bit better, not even, it doesn't even have to be night and day, but just a good bit better than what we're playing right now, then that's all we're going to need to be effective. So,
yeah.
but
I
we'll
mean,
see.
yeah. I mean, that's really all you need. You just need them to be good. You don't need them to be
Nope.
elite. You just
Nope.
need them to be good.
Be effective. That's
Yeah.
all. That's right. So, yeah. Now, my third point for you, Ryan, was about we brought in weapons to take pressure off KC, use them,
Mhm.
and I feel like honestly, Ryan, that I was in the minority on the live show between Greg and Michael and even Macon too, saying that honestly, I think it's completely unacceptable how much KC has gotten the ball so far through 2 games.
Yeah.
Bringing up these stats here, how, of the 60 passes that have been thrown so far, KC's gotten 21 of them so far, which is just basically a little bit over a 33% target rate, which, I mean, Ryan, I don't know if you play fantasy football or not, but the example I was saying is, I mean, like if a wide receiver gets over 20% targets, that's pretty elite. If you get over 30, that's like almost unheard of. So, I mean, like in college, with all these guys that we have, for him to have over a 33% target share is just crazy. Now, the point which I was making is I completely get it that KC is probably and arguably the best wide receiver in the ACC, is one of the best wide receivers in the country right now. But at the end of the day, we can't be so reliant on him like we were last year, because gosh forbid he gets injured, and then now you're having to beg the other receivers and Grayson McCall to get some chemistry going, to start to get some confidence together, to know, for Grayson to know what these guys are going to give him. And because again, I mean, Noah Rogers has 5 targets. Wesley Grimes has 4 targets, Wesley Grimes really flashed against Western Carolina. Dakari Collins, who really flashed late last year, 7 targets. So, I just don't really feel like you really even know what you have in these other guys yet. So that's why, honestly, for this Louisiana Tech game, I'm saying, listen, I think this is the one game that if Casey gets 4 targets, we should be fine. We should be great. We should still be great, and that's honestly okay. Like let's go see what we have in these other guys. Let's go get Grayson throwing more game speed passes to these other guys that are not named Kevin Concepcion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if it's a thing too where your line again doesn't give you much time. So your X and your Y and your flex, sometimes they won't be able to really run their stems as deep or where they should be.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult to get them the ball. So, and I wonder if that's why you see Casey at 1, because he's your slot guy. And then Jolie, who's like your slot flex, your tight end, kind of like that hybrid guy, because they're almost like you're guaranteed between the hash, quick pass, your go-to guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder if it's a product of how the offense has been effectively, because I think the majority of our passes have been within 20 yards, 10,
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 yards. I'm not sure there's really been anything completed like in air downfield. I think probably Anderson has one of the longest in air catches. And of course, I could be wrong.
Who did you say? Who were you betting on?
Well, like in air, like an in air pass
But
to Anderson. I guess it was only 16
oh, okay,
yards.
16 yards. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just I like here's honestly my other thing too, is that if we were going to make KC a huge focal point, just like we did last year, then why would we spend money and resources going after these other guys when we could have used that money on spending more money on offensive line, spending more
Yeah,
money on defense? Like that's why I'm kind of sitting here, looking at Noah Rogers with 5 targets, being like, he came from Ohio State, not giving any insider information here, but huge shocker, he wasn't cheap. It didn't cost him, $100 for him to come to NC State. That's all I'm saying. And
yeah,
so he's getting 5 targets. I'm sitting here like if I'm a donor, I'm like, we paid this guy how much per, like, just like, that's kind of where I'm at is listen, like at the end of the day, you asked for money to invest, you're investing it in this way, and yet you're not putting your money where your mouth is a little bit. Yeah, I think that's kind of a phrase for it. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, you're saying, hey, listen, I want to go have all these weapons to get take pressure off KC, to not make our offense so one way focused on how to get the ball to KC, and that's not how it's been so far. So that's kind of, I guess, kind of what I'm getting at is, if Casey's going to be the guy, why do we spend money on weapons instead of offensive line and defense?
yeah, yeah. I think it's more so to spread out the field because Last year, you really had no one to respect other than
No.
KC.
Oh yeah.
So you basically could just cloud coverage KC. Now, granted, he's still got his own, but I think the thought process going into this year was like, if we could just surround the field, and this is going about to go full circle. If we surround the field with all these different weapons, then it should open it up either for KC or those outside guys, because you got to focus on one person.
Right.
But then that goes back to my previous point, like State isn't spreading the field out to get their players out in space to make plays. Instead, we rather focus on running 2 tight end sets, no motion, none of this and that to get these dudes isolated. Like every game, every play, there's a mismatch. And the thought with having all these weapons is like you're going to at least guarantee to have a mismatch somewhere. Like I can tell you probably every game except maybe against Tennessee, KC is going to be the mismatch. Yes. But the thought is like if I can bring in Rodgers, Grimes, you got Collins coming back in, and especially Jolie, there's going to be additional mismatches that I can kind of focus on and exploit. Yep. But unfortunately, I don't think the offense has done that this year.
No.
I feel like we should be running more to Jolie. He's been elite in the pass game.
Yes.
I don't know when you want to talk about McCall, but I assume we're going to talk about that interception play.
Of course.
But that's another. If you want to talk about it now or whatever you want to talk about,
we will in a sec. Yeah.
I just think, man, I just think the offensive play calling has just not been very good.
No. I mean, again,
I think it's the play calling and also the execution. It just has not been there.
Well, like here's my thing. For example, if like on that fancy trick play against the Tennessee game, the bomb to KC, which I guess is probably the longest pass play we've had this season so far. Yeah. Do we have? Again, I don't know speed. You probably know speed better than I do, but did it have to go to KC? Could you have one of our other fast wide receivers? Could the ball have gone to them? That's kind of my question.
I think at this point, I think they probably trust KC the most.
Oh, well, probably, of course, yeah. You're giving them a 33% target share. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and that's how I see it. They just probably trust him the most to go and get the ball.
But he also had probably 3 or 4 targets that first drive alone.
Yeah, I think he had 3 catches on the first drive, and then he only had 2 more targets the remainder of the game.
Yeah. So again, it's just I don't understand why he got only 2 targets the rest of the game, but I also don't really understand that it just seems like our offensive game plan is just basically exactly what we had last year. Just get the ball to KC. That's all we're doing right now. And it just doesn't seem like smart, with the amount of money we have and weapons outside of KC, but also too, it just is setting up for the scary scenario of what if he gets injured, and then now you're really asking your quarterback, Grayson McCall, who struggled up until this point, to take a huge step forward and grow confidence really quickly in these other guys. But real quick though, Ryan, before we talk about Mr. Grayson McCall and my last point here, I know that you were at the tailgate, the Savage Wolves tailgate, and looked awesome. Looked like a huge turnout for sure at the Tennessee game, right? I mean, I saw pictures and videos. It was huge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was a ton of people. I think we got there at like 2:30 to set everything up. And dude, I mean, it was a great turnout. We were kind of, it was funny because we were kind of worried about doing it because we weren't sure how many people would come. It ended up being more people than the Western Carolina game. Western was like completely sold out.
Yeah.
But man, it was packed. I mean, it was a lot of good people. We got a couple donations, a couple members. So all in all, man, it was pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and so did you happen to try? So what of the Oconee Gold barbecue sauce did you try, man? Did you try the Carolina Gold and the Carolina Wingy mix together? Did you try that?
I'm pretty sure it was the Carolina Gold that I had.
Yeah.
Because I brought some home with me because it was so good.
Let's go.
Like, no joke. Yeah, it was really good because that's like my favorite kind of sauce is like Carolina Gold. I don't know why, but I don't know. I just enjoy it.
Which that's like a mustard based
yeah,
barbecue sauce. Yeah, no, it's so delicious. And so again, that Carolina Red, which more that vinegar based barbecue sauce, so freaking good. Again, that Eastern versus Western barbecue, conversation goes on, right? And so this is definitely the one side barbecue sauce versus the other. So again, y'all, make sure again if you want to check out again this amazing barbecue sauce, whether that's your vinegar based, your mustard based, your brown sugar based, or even to some of this amazing dry rub as well, the Coney Gold Dust as well, which is an amazing mix of brown sugar and paprika flavor, delicious in all your meats, whether it's chicken, shrimp, pork, whatever it may be. Make sure again to use the link in the description below, Coney Gold. Use the coupon code Tuffy Talk to get 15% off your entire order, y'all. And if it's over $99, you also get free shipping as well, y'all. So go and check it out. Enjoy it, and you will love it. Guarantee there will not be a bad option for sure, and I can guarantee you that. So again, go check out Coney Gold and get your barbecue sauce and rubs here today. Well, with that being said, Ryan, let's jump into the last one here for the last few minutes, man. Leadership needs to show up now.
Yeah.
Right now. And honestly, this is a question which I asked at the live show, which I think is a fair question, which is, who are your leaders right now? Like who, when you watch the game, who's just screaming out to you as a leader? And the only guy I can really think of right now is Davin Van. I think Davin Van has been your leader so far. Period. I mean, I think that hit he had on Nico to force that pick six was huge, and in a time where we really needed just something to hang our hat on, anything, please, something, So, but I mean, offensively, I just don't see that leadership yet. It's been frustrating because there's so many experienced guys on this team.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem when you mesh together so many different dudes. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to take that role on. Whereas, on the defense, Van has been here for a while. So he's been, he's obviously taken on the role. But I mean, obviously you need it from your quarterback. The problem is that this is McCall's first year, but he's been severely struggling. And all the talk through fall camp and the off season was how composed McCall was. He doesn't make mistakes. I'm not sitting here on Twitter trying to BS that. He genuinely did not turn the ball over. So now he's struggling, and it's you need a leader to support the leader. If they're kind of down. And I even tweeted during the Tennessee game, State is so used to having dudes with attitude. And I feel like you haven't seen that this year. I know it's there, but you haven't seen it. You had dudes, Drake Thomas, Peyton Wilson, they just played with attitude. They had it on the sideline. You had Tanner Engel. And it's to me, you don't, and maybe I'm just missing it, but I just feel like you don't have those dudes this year that just have the same fire, or at least showing the same fire as what we're used to.
Do you think that some of that comes from the fact that most of your lead guys right now on the team are not guys that came into the program as freshmen? So maybe there's a little bit of not quite as much pride in the success of the program as somebody like Peyton Wilson or Drake Thomas, who came in from the get-go?
Oh, absolutely. Of course, they're going to be loyal to the program. But if they just came in, they could be gone after the year. The whole landscape of football has changed. Of course, they're competitive. They want to win. And just some dudes got it and some dudes don't. I mean, they just show different emotions in different ways. To me, this year, it just hasn't seemed the same. I think they just kind of came in expecting to win or expecting to play good. So even after the Western Carolina game, I think it was kind of a shock. And then Tennessee happened, and then it's okay, well, now we're in the third game of the season. You got one chance left to get prepared for ACC play.
Yep.
So something's going to have to change.
Yep. Well, and we'll bring up the stats here for Grayson McCall, but again, 72 dropbacks, 62 passes thrown, 41 completions for a 66% completion percentage, which is not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. 422 yards passing, which it goes to 6.8 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now 2 interceptions, but I think on here we have fumbles, which I can't remember if it's 3 or 4. I don't see fumbles on here, but anyway, though, but I mean, he has a 29.3 fumble PFF grade, so that's that goes to tell you all you need to know right there. But yeah, just and actually even too, if you do actually the adjusted completion percentage, which includes drop passes, which there's been 5 of them, it goes up to 76.7% completion percentage. So,
Yeah.
but let's talk about that one play. The interception. Here's my thing with it is, we brought in Grayson to be a game manager. We didn't bring him in to be Brandon Armstrong 2023, which is like, we are relying on you. Like, go make it happen. Like, it's gonna happen or not because of what Brandon Armstrong does. Like, we did not ask that to come from Grayson McCall. We asked him to take care of the ball and throw guys open. Simple as that. Run the play, throw guys open. That's all we ask. And through 2 games so far, first game you saw him throw 90% of his passes behind the guy, which I can understand that, because that basically is telling me that he still has not adjusted to this level of weapons in terms of wide receivers, just throwing, not used to, throwing so far ahead of guys, because of the speed difference between what he's throwing to here versus Coastal Carolina. But then, Tennessee, the interception, it was a tough pass. Like, honestly, somebody might say, well, it's just a dump off. Well, he had to throw high enough to throw over the defensive lineman who was trying to jump up and bat it down, but he couldn't throw it too far to the point where he overthrew Justin Jolie, or in what basically happened, get the pass intercepted. So what I come to that as is, do you hope, if you're Grace, if you're an eye, that if you see Grayson McCall and you see that defensive lineman jump, to not force that pass, but instead, since he leaves his feet, tuck it and run. You know what I mean? And don't risk getting that, ball intercepted, to either the defensive lineman or the safety over the top.
Yeah,
That's kind of where I sit with that play.
I think it's one of those things, man. It's like I could tell a quarterback all day not to do something, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to instinct in a split second. But I think what makes me so mad about that play, and I could be remembering it wrong, but your outside receiver, he didn't even look like he was running a damn route. Like, he literally was just like walking up the field, jogging up the field, looking back at Grayson. So what does that do? That puts the defender right there in between the outside receiver and Jolie, and it's an interception. Like, to me, again, it's part of scheme. Like, if that is your play, why is your outside receiver not either doing a crosser over the middle to take that defender out of even being in a position to get an interception? Or why is he not just running a straight go route? Because it was very obvious. You could tell by the outside receiver how he ran his route that ball was going no other place other than Jolie. And so by him running that route and being where he was, it allowed the defender to be in between the two. Yep. And basically cover both guys at once, and he picked the ball off. Like, again, like, to me, it goes back to scheme, because at the end of the day, for McCall, I mean, it's instinct. Like, the offense is moving. You don't want to take a sack. So he just tried to make a play. And probably 9 times out of 10, that's just going to hit the ground. Yep. But because your outside receiver basically didn't run a route and he's just like walking or jogging, it put a defender in a spot to make an interception.
Yep.
It's tough, because I think McCall is a lot better than what he's shown. Sure. I agree with you. I think the first game was him kind of getting acclimated. I think you saw the first drive against Tennessee. I mean, he was surgical. Like, he was getting the ball where it needed to be. He was finding the right routes. He was finding the right reads. There was even and again, God freaking scheme, man. There was a pass, I think it was in the third quarter. Grayson tried throwing it to KC, but it was either Grimes or Rogers was running a crosser right in front of KC and tipped the ball, and it almost got picked off because the crosser thought it was going to him, but it was actually going to KC. It's like, why are you running routes in the same exact window of time? Yep. Yep. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep.
That's why, people are calling for Bailey and people don't like McCall. And I'm just like, look, McCall has issues. I guarantee he has probably never fumbled a handoff in his life. It is just unfortunate. It was just one of those things, momentum. It was just bad momentum, and it just kept snowballing. I've told you before the season starts, some of the throws he made in practice were insane. And
Mhm.
obviously, practice doesn't count. The games count. But he's even made some great throws in games.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, that
so
pass to Terrell Anderson, against Western Carolina, that was a gorgeous route. Big
yeah,
time throw.
and even the one I was telling you about that the crosser tried
Mm.
catching the ball instead of KC, that was like his third or fourth option, and he was like rolling, and it was going to be just perfect to KC for a first down,
Yep.
and it was just scheme caused it to mess up.
Yep.
So I think he just gets like really unfair criticism.
Sure.
Um, I think he is a good quarterback, and he's going to have some really good moments.
Yep.
It's just important, like we go into Saturday, and I know how it's going to be. If God forbid State goes 3-and-out or something bad happens, fans are going to
2023, Brandon Armstrong all over again.
yeah, and it's just so unjustifiable, man. Like it's just absurd, and to me, and I'm not bragging on the offensive coordinator because we did the same crap with Beck. I
Mhm.
think the schemes could be a lot better for your O line, and then that'll trickle down to the rest of your skill guys.
Yeah. Agreed. Now, the last thing, Ryan, which I want to talk about before we wrap this up here, brother, is I texted you guys, but I mean, I truly do think, believe it or not, even though we're a 21.5 point favorite, that this game against Louisiana Tech is probably the second biggest group of 5 game in Dorn's tenure so far. And you
Mhm.
say, how can we be a 21.5 point favorite, but it'd be the second biggest game in a group of 5 against a group of 5 opponent in Dorn's history? And it really comes down to that. I mean, obviously, the first and foremost, the number one biggest game was Liberty, and that was when they were undefeated and top 20 program in the country at that point. So obviously no shocker there with Malik Willis, just a star-studded Liberty team. But now with this game, like I really do think that now this Clemson game is setting up to be the biggest game in Dorn's tenure without even a question. Just
Mhm.
because simply everything's aligned. Like, gosh forbid, knocking on wood up here, as long as there's no injuries that happen against Louisiana Tech, it literally couldn't set up any better. He'd be healthy. He'd have the most talented team he's ever had in his tenure. He gets to play Clemson early as well, which leads to a lot of those things, such as healthy, and blah blah blah. But also, you don't have to play in Death Valley at night. You're playing them at noon.
That
Which
is good.
which is huge.
Yeah,
So, and again, because again, there's so much um on the line against that Clemson game, because then you really put yourself in the driver's seat for the ACC the rest of the way.
yeah.
And because if he doesn't beat Clemson, then I'm going to come out of that game saying, well, what's it going to take? What
We're
what's
just
what's
yeah.
what's the excuse? What is it? And again, Dorn, as much as I love him, man, I love that man to death. I still say 100% he's one of the, top 3 head coaches in NC State history. And if he can win ACC title, he's number 1. It's Dave Dorn Field and put the statue out front. And yeah. So, but for me, it's just you got to get it done. Go get it
Mhm.
done. You know what I mean? There's so much time, money invested in this team. Go get it done. So in order to get ready for that game, you have to go and show a lot against Louisiana Tech. You have to go get some things right against Louisiana Tech. You
Yep.
have to go keep guys healthy. You need to go get Clemson thinking a little bit, who's going to be sitting at home watching this game, not having to worry about any other opponent except for us. So that's the only really challenge or negative side, is that Clemson is going to watch us play Louisiana Tech instead of having to worry about another opponent. So that's the only negative I can really think of about that Clemson game.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, like you got to get it done eventually, and I'm telling you, dude, it is so Dave Dorn esque to go and beat Louisiana Tech. All like the fan base is just distraught right now because you look bad against Western Carolina, you
Yep.
looked awful against Tennessee. You'll probably struggle against Louisiana Tech, beat them by 14, 17 points. And then you'll probably go to Clemson, beat Clemson, and then come back home and beat Northern Illinois. And then everything's going to be forgotten.
Yeah.
I mean, that's honestly how it's been in Dorn's tenure. I mean, even, what was it, like 17 or 18? It was an awful year. It was like 6-6. You go and
Mhm.
beat UNC to finish the year,
Yep.
and then you go and you win your bowl game. Like, it is
Mhm.
so Dorn to win these big games
Yep.
when fans feel the worst. I mean, that happened last year after the Duke game. I mean, State fans were irate. I mean, they were losing it, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
And then you turn out 6 straight wins or 5 straight wins, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's again, to your point, I think it's setting up for State to win the game. I'm not saying for sure they're going to win, but it would be one of those that in Dave's tenure they would win.
Yep, absolutely agree. So, Ryan, appreciate you, brother. Again, for Nick, appreciate you tuning in, man, as well in the chat. But again, y'all, make sure again, y'all, let's go pack this game out here on Saturday. I know it's a new game. I know it's early, but again, y'all, let's show up, show out. You know, I know there was some chance of rain, which I haven't seen what the weather looks like here recently, but hopefully it stays away and at least as a cool day to go watch some football, and hopefully, you know, again, go win this game comfortably, kick some teeth in against Louisiana Tech, and let's go get a big win here to set up for this game against Clemson, y'all. And that's because that's another thing too, by the way, Ryan, I didn't even mention that, but honestly, I think this is probably, you know, one of the most overrated Clemson teams that Clemson's had in Dabo's tenure, and that's simply because, again, I mean, they're still getting a lot of hype just because they butt whooped App State, even though there's so many questions about Cade Klubnik, it's not even funny. So, even still. So, anyway, y'all, and then for us, again, make sure, again, go check out Oconee Gold. Y'all use that link down in the description below, or again, go to OconeeGoldBarbecue.com and go use coupon code Tuffy Talk to get 15% off your entire order, y'all. And if it's over $99, you get free shipping as well. Go check it out. The delicious barbecue sauces and rubs, and enjoy, y'all. And then for us, make sure, again, check out Tuffy Talk on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And again, make sure you hit that subscribe button, y'all, and hit that notification bell. And let's go get a big win on Saturday. Go Pack, y'all.